BG3 just got its brand new community update, and we'll briefly go over some of the bigger things with that. We also got to talk about a further official update to the review embargo, as well as some additional accessibility features, and even some discrepancies with past community updates, as well as some exclusive cosmetics that are time-gated, and even some deals on past games. We got a ton to talk about. What's up, World Streamer? Back in the video, and today we're checking out all things Baldur's Gate 3. Okay, so first up, we'll just jump into the brief stuff about the community update. I know you've probably already seen the community update or some of the things there. I do want to go over some of the major stuff because there is some discrepancies with older updates. Now, we did get that hidden skill tree finally shown off, and that's for the illicit powers. They very briefly go over it. They don't go into a ton of details, but of course this is just another skill tree with a bunch of different traits that you can select. The example showcased here in the infograph was something called free cast, and it kind of explains itself. You get a free cast, and this refreshes after a short or long rest. Now, in order to upgrade this skill tree or upgrade the perks within it, you will need to find parasites throughout the world. They gave some examples that were located in jars, brines, or even in skulls, and then you must also then consume them. Now, they did show off those cosmetics or those exclusive cosmetics, and that has to do with the Twitch drops, which will run from August 3rd, 9 a.m. Pacific time to August 17th, 9 a.m. Pacific time. And for all 4 individual items here, you will need to watch 2 hours each of Twitch, or someone's Twitch stream that is playing BG3. So that's going to essentially require 8 hours. Also, do be sure that you are claiming these gifts or claiming the Twitch drop, as I do believe if you're not actually claiming them within your Twitch drops, it won't go on to the next drop. Now, there is several Twitch add-ons that you can get, like Better TTV or even 7 TTV. Both of those add-ons I do believe have an auto-claim gift section or an auto-claim drop section. So be sure to either download those add-ons or check every 2 hours and claim those drops. Now, there has been discussion around this prior, but of course they are allowing you to respec. You actually do encounter this guy early in Act 1, or at least you can. You should only have to engage in 2 combat scenarios to get there, but it's by the Withers in Dank Crypt. I do believe they said that eventually in the release version of the game, the NPC will actually join your camp. He is also the person that raises your companions, if anything does seem to happen. To get to him this early, you will need to do a D20 lockpick. Essentially, it's located where the cave is where you start. But yeah, that's a quick way to get to him if you do want to respec anybody in your party or yourself. We did already go over Steam Deck compatibility. That's of course there, as well as cross-save compatibility. Of course, we went over those global launch time, which is 8 a.m. Pacific. But the big thing here is that it will fully support ultra-wide screens. And this does also include cutscenes, which I think is a major one, because for a lot of games, they usually have the black bars that'll cut off. However, we have an image here that showcases the purple bars would be where the 16:9 cutoff would happen. The green bar shows where the ultra-wide begins, so you can kind of see how far the ultra-wide can actually go. Also, we had a poster here on Reddit who showcased this ultra-wide, and this is a max ultra-wide monitor. And you can see, yeah, it works both in gameplay and dialogue scenarios, as well as the cutscenes that were showcased on the community page. Now, here's where the discrepancy is with the community update, and this dates back all the way to the original first community update that they had for Baldur's Gate. And so the headline here reads that, yes, the Origins characters can find somebody without you. The thing that changes here is there's a big discrepancy now with the new Community 22 update, which says that an NPC Origin essentially cannot find somebody that is also an NPC Origin. A played Origin character can be with an NPC Origin, which obviously it's that way because we saw stuff from the panel, and then as well as a played Origin cannot be with another played Origin character. So essentially multiplayer stuff there, but the discrepancy here is that NPCs cannot be with other NPCs, whereas before it was thought of that they can basically find somebody without you, or that they will find somebody if you do not pursue them. And I believe they've even gone back to edit the original community first update, so they've kind of gotten rid of these discrepancies there. It's understandable. There's so many complexities with this game, so I'm not faulting them for that. However, those were those big discrepancies and kind of major differences with the first and this update now. Now, of course, we got the news that there is not going to be any preloading, but we also did get official news from several articles now that showcase that the review embargo will not drop to the day of release. There was no official word on this. This was just kind of word of mouth, and nobody really knew for sure. However, we do have full confirmation now that we will not be seeing any reviews until the day of release. This does have some worried, and this is kind of like the center of drama for this game, is normally it is actually a pretty big issue for games to release these review codes kind of late, and as well as make the review on the same day of release. It's normally a very, very bad sign for games. However, in the case of BG3, I don't think this will be the case. With older games, the Act 2 or the later acts were kind of showcased to have quite a lot of bugs. I think we might see some bugginess this with Act 2 and Act 3 with Baldur's Gate. However, I don't think it's going to be anything that's terribly significant. And as long as you're saving constantly, which I do in basically every RPG that I play. In fact, I think like Cyberpunk, I had like 300 or 400 saves. I always save before any major event. And yeah, that'd be like my one recommendation, is just constantly be saving. You never know when you make a bad decision or a bug happens or something just completely kind of ruins your playthrough. And you might want to go back and be like, yeah, I didn't want to make that decision. Or you might want to go back to fix it. Or even, yeah, if there's any pesky bugs, then you definitely want to be saving a lot. Hopefully there's nothing too game breaking with this later kind of review embargo. I do think it's mostly due to spoilers and them wanting to keep things under wraps, more so than it being a buggy or them worried about how the release is going to play out, especially when you look back at releases like Cyberpunk. Now, there's all there about the false promises, the false marketing, and as well as the terrible console performance. But the PC release for me ran great, and the game sold really well back then and continues to sell really well, probably mostly attributed to the anime recently. However, that game did just fine, and yeah, it does get touted as kind of buggy mess. I hope that doesn't happen for BG3, but they still did well with sales, and the game was good overall for me. Now, I know I've had a few questions in my comments about the multiplayer as well as the co-op stuff, and we had a question here on the Reddit as well of someone asking basically, can you drop in, drop out multiplayer? And you can do that. You can drop in, drop out multiplayer. However, it's not going to insert your player character. You're going to have to play as one of the origin characters that they have with them. The only way that you can keep your custom character is if you start the campaign together with that person or with the people of your party. So you would have to start the campaign at the same time in order to have your custom character with everybody. So there is drop in, drop out multiplayer, but your custom character won't follow you there. I've also seen a ton of questions about subclasses, as well as how our subclass is going to work. I've scoured both wikis, I've scoured a bunch of information. There's multiple articles that are missing things for the subclasses, so I might even do a wizard subguide class tomorrow, also on top of my wizard build guide. Just because there's so many discrepancies there with the actual subclasses. There's a list of them here, and there's a ton of new ones that we didn't have from early access. Wizard having an insane amount. So yeah, most of this is the information we have so far. I'll give a few articles that kind of have some information. We're still not 100% positive if it's going to work that way or not, but they probably should be pretty close or mirror it exactly. So I'll have that information down below if you want to check it out for now. Someone also posted what the gnome Ceramorphs look like, which is me wanting to play a gnome and me playing gnomes in other games. I do find this kind of funny, and yeah, it looks pretty cool. And if you didn't see yesterday's video, I did also have that poll running. This is for the Baldur's Gate 3 difficulty. It's up to over 800 votes now, which is pretty awesome. And after going through some comments, I do have to agree with one here, and that they're probably going to start with Tactician. Basically, they only get one chance to play before they know all the layouts, and it'll be too easy. Now, I more than likely probably will try out Tactician at the start. If it gets too hard, I will lower the difficulty. But for sure, I'll stay at balanced at least, but I am going to try Tactician. I know I had a question in a comment in my last video about if you're able to change the difficulty on the fly, and yes, they did confirm and showcase it during the July 7th panel. You can hot swap back and forth with difficulties whenever you want. And last minute here, we actually did have an update from the NVIDIA PR team, and we are going to be getting a DLSS 3.0 upgrade for BG3. As well as DLAA. Did see a few comments on the DLAA stuff, so now we do have confirmation that we should be getting that. And currently for BG3, it only has FSR 1.0. If you don't have an NVIDIA graphics card, if you have AMD, or if you can't use DLSS and you're on a 1000 or 900 series GPU, I strongly recommend to not use FSR. Lower whatever settings you can and try to just get the best graphic fidelity you can, because if you look at any of the FSR comparisons to native resolution, FSR is pretty bad. It reminds me of motion blur, and it's just kind of awful in its performance. If you have to use FSR, if it's your only way to get playable frame rate, then yes, go ahead and use FSR. But if you have decent frame rate with native resolution, I would just try to lower some settings before going to FSR, as overall the graphic fidelity is severely degraded with FSR. And the amount of motion blur that it adds with the image is kind of insane, especially as being on FSR 1.0 when FSR 2.0 is also not that good. So yeah, I recommend staying away from FSR if you can. You're better off lowering graphic settings and other things like that. Again, everything I covered in the video today is going to be down in the description. And if you enjoyed today's video, like and subscribe. And until the next one, deuces.